Starting around age 3 or 4, I had the opportunity to start raising chickens. When my journey started, I never knew what it would become. I never imagined I would be raising chickens to this day. I started out with 10 chickens. Another thing I never thought about was how many predators we would have while living in the middle of nowhere. We built a little coop for the chickens that we had right behind the shed at my old house. The number of chickens we raised quickly declined due to the fact of all the predators. Although there were a lot of predators where I live, we decided to keep up this operation. As long as I can remember, I have raised chickens. Whether those chickens are new or old, I have always been able to have a responsibility of lives. I could never imagine a life without coming home every day and immediately taking care of the animals I raised. Growing up, I always had the responsibility of animals. I remember I used to have this hen that I named Princess. Princess was a tan with white stripes going down her. She was called a buff-colored bantam. This was my favorite chicken growing up. To this day, I still don't know why. I would just pick a chicken, and from there on was my chicken. In 2008, we moved to a new house. We moved the chickens over here and upgraded their coop to avoid all of the predators. A couple years later. Leading up to this year, life was great. I was able to have my own responsibilities with raising chickens. Almost every day we would go over to my grandfather's house. He had a chicken coop that was so big it actually, matter of fact, used to be a house. Growing up, I always remember him having tons and tons of chickens. I bet he was getting close to 100. My grandfather and I would go out to the coop every day and collect the eggs, feed, and water the chickens. He was the person that taught me everything I know when it came to the chickens. He was in his late 90s and still going out to feed and water them every day. He always preached that you don't eat until they eat. Sadly, he passed away in late 2014. My whole family and I were trying to cope, and we're just going through a rough time with getting over it. Little did I know those little trips out to the chicken coop every day wasn't just because it needed done. That was the way that we could get out of the house and do what we both enjoyed. Those little trips were us bonding and being able to connect with one another. The chicken coop wasn't just a place for the chickens. It was our place, the place we both loved and was ourselves at. And most importantly, a place for us to make many, many memories. I found out that when he passed away, he gave me his chickens. Now these chickens were at least already 3 years old, and chickens generally stop laying at 3 to 4 years of age, so I figured they would only lay a few more eggs in their lifetime when I brought them over to my house. But to this day, they still occasionally lay eggs. When Princess died, I figured I could never have a bond as strong as that with the chicken. I immediately got attached to a chicken that had a crooked beak. This beak was so crooked, it was like an X in its beak. I'm not the best at naming animals. I'll be the first to admit that. I only name my favorite chickens because they are the special ones. This one's name was Crooks. Crooks stuck out from the other chickens because of her unique beak. Most chickens that are born with beaks like that die at a very young age because it is difficult to eat with a beak deformity. This hen was a miracle. She lived to be around 6 years old when she finally died of old age. It was a devastating day for me the day she passed. The whole time she was alive, I had one more chicken that was named. I named this rooster after my grandfather. His name was John. He was around 5 years old, we are guessing, when we got him, so we never expected him to live that long at our house, with him already being that old. John is a beautiful big white rooster called a leghorn chicken. John is a miracle from my grandfather, I believe. 5 years old in 2014. To this day, John is still a healthy rooster. The reason I think it is a miracle is because chickens live from 3 to 4 years old. He is 10 years old. The only reason I can think is because it is a little piece of my grandfather. A little piece of my grandfather is still here because of John. It's like he is here to remind me that he might be gone to where I can't see him, but he is never actually gone from my life. My grandfather was a preacher, and he is also a little experimenter in his spare time. Come to find out, he created a breed of chickens. I know that you might think I'm going crazy, but hear me out. My grandfather mixed a Rhode Island red hen with a Rhode Island white rooster, and this mixture is now named after a chicken going by the name of a cinnamon queen. A fun fact about these chickens is that they almost always laid double yolkers. He then, once he created this breed of a chicken, sold some of the many he had to the cackle hatchery here in Lebanon. They then produce more and more, and that is why they are very common in Missouri. Although it feels like there are tons and tons of chickens raised in America, there are only 391,311 chickens. Now that does seem like a lot, but China has the most out of the whole world. China has the amounts adding up to 5.27 billion. With that, there are only 23.7 billion chickens in the whole world, so that is a lot of chickens for just one place. A couple of months ago, we were missing tons of eggs at my house, so I climbed every single hay bale in my barn to try and find them. I tried really hard, but all I found was animals that made holes in the hay to live out this brutal winter. My mother, a couple days later, went outside to feed the cattle, and she saw a chicken jump into this tarp that led to a hole that one of the animals made. She then proceeded to tell me to go look in that hole. I felt tons and tons of eggs. I pulled them out one by one, and it ended up being a total of 16 eggs. Now, growing up, I can never remember a time that I didn't have chickens. I was always dealt with great responsibilities that led me to be who I have become to this day. I have never been able to imagine a life where I did not have the responsibility of coming home after a long day at school and immediately having to run outside to make sure that they were all safe and had food and water. And most importantly, to see how many eggs there were. You might think that collecting eggs sounds kind of boring, and on some days it is. But on other days, it is like I'm running around like it's an Easter egg hunt. Those are the fun days. The days that you just run around without a care in the world except to try and find eggs. And the funny part of all of this is you never know how many eggs there are, so you just get to look everywhere until you run out of places to look. Thank you.